So today we're talking about the sequence of restoring a classic car, and in this particular case a Jaguar E Type 2+2. I have been there, and you have maybe been there or will be there. That's why you're watching this video. And there are different ways of restoring a car, and everybody has to find his own way. But before I did my first restoration, I asked so many E-Type restorers what the best way is. I'm giving you now the experience of my best way of doing it. The sequence is, I would say, there are 10 major steps or important steps you need to consider. And we start with the body. So the disassembly of the car, of the project, is the first thing you always start with. And that is already one of the most crucial points. And why is that? Because you're enthusiastic and you think, yeah, you want to get started, get it done within a couple of weeks, but often life is a bit different. There are unpredictable things that might happen, which might delay your project, and hopefully it doesn't happen, but it does. One of the most important things when disassembling the car, you need to document every single nut and bolt and screw, because you don't know when you're going to reassemble it, and therefore it is utmost important that you take hundreds of pictures. I'm always taking thousands of pictures, not always from the obvious places, because that you might find on internet. That is the classic ones. You need to take pictures of the parts you usually don't see. So you have to go behind the components and take the shots from there. Or every time you take something off which is hidden by a component, you need to take new pictures, because that is always where you get stuck and lost. So please make sure you have, at every time you take something off the car or the engine or whatever, you take pictures all the time throughout the process. It will help you in the end. Maybe not every picture will help you, but you might have a good chance to have a picture of that, what you're looking for, after years of disassembling. So the other thing is, it is not only documenting the disassembly, it is also important to mark the items and parts. And what I'm always doing, as you can see here, I have disassembled the engine, and in here you see these are the screws for the oil sump, and to make sure these will go back to the oil sump, what I then do is I take an old bag. When I order something, I always have bags, surplus bags, and what I do here is I put them in here, and when I ever go back, so that is the car 2+2 oil sump screws. So in that way I always remember what these are and what they are for, and I don't mix them up. And these are the original ones, and of course I want to get them back on. And after years, you know, the engine now is at the workshop, at the engine shop, and they will measure the piston and liners, and they will see if I have to get new liners in. But they will surface the head and the engine, and they are not waiting for me. That's the thing. They are busy, and they are more busy than ever. They have a lack of stuff, and they have more classic cars than ever. And so you have to get your slot in there. And I have dropped the engine, and he said it won't be ready in a couple of weeks. They will do it, but they have to get things done in their order. So when I was there were 3 other XKE engines, and so might be the last one, but they can start measure, and I can order the parts which are required. So for the bigger parts, like this one here, you see, this is from the engine. I put that in here. I put all these for the chain. And when I see this is somewhere in between here. the best thing for not losing this, you take a wire and you just, and that way you can't lose, and you will always remember these belong together. So these also go in here, and that will be a box for itself. These engine screws, these belong to the engine on the side. They're going to be cleaned, and I'll leave the copper ring I leave in there. That reminds me that I need to order them as well when I'm getting there. So in here again, I have 1, 2 plus 2 in restoration process. And that all goes in here, and I leave them together. And I also have this bit here. For not losing the screws, I could either use the wire or I put them in one bag. And I have the bag in here. And when I have the time, I will always clean them together. So that's my documentation. So disassembly is the first step. When you have disassembled everything, you will have the naked body shell left, and that needs to be stripped. And I went this time, opposed to sandblasting usually, I went this time to acid dipping. And the result is in my second video, and you might have seen that. After stripping, the next step is the bodywork. And I'm now talking about the sequence in which you get work done. And why is the bodywork first? Because that takes the longest. Bodywork always takes the longest. And that is because you might need to have a workshop who get the things done. They are busy with other things. They have other projects coming in, and they might take your car in, but they might not start before the next 3 months. So make sure you have your slot ordered there at the body shop, and even though they tell you we start, please always go and check the progress. There's always someone else who is pushing more, and the car takes priority to yours. And you always need to get there, and you always need to take some pictures, you need to document it. The body shop might not do it, and that is why you need to go there, and they need to feel you are present. The body work is the first thing, and it's not only because you need to get the body work done, it is because it needs to get painted afterwards. And that is not that the painter is waiting for your body. They have other projects already there. So that is the reason why the body work is the first to start with. I know some people start with the engine, and then the rebuilt engine stays there for years and hasn't been touched. It's just waiting to get the bodywork done. So I repeat, bodywork, stripping the car, then the bodywork. Make sure all chrome parts are fitted perfectly. Very often, unexperienced restorers or coach builder, they don't fit the chrome bits. So please make sure and tell your coach builder they need to fit the chrome bits, and they need to be fitted properly. And it's not you have a pair of bumpers and you think they fit to your car. You bought them new. They all have to be fitted to your car. It is not that you can place one bumper to the other car that won't fit, like the doors. You can't exchange the doors or the wings. Everything has to be fitted to the car which is in progress. And that needs to be understood. Otherwise, you will find yourself with a freshly painted body and nothing fits. And I'm not talking about the bumpers. I'm talking about the chrome surround on the headlights. I'm talking about the window frames, the quarter lights. Everything needs to be fitted during the progress of coach building. Prior to painting, make sure you have the car fitted with every chrome component. Then the next step is what usually takes very long, is the engine. I have started with the engine stripping, and I've made a video on that as well. And when you see that, you will understand why engine stripping or engine work is an important thing. Because it takes longer than you think. And you can't say, well, engine looks good, I just put it back in there. You don't know what's inside the engine. that you only discover when you have disassembled that. The gearbox. Why is the gearbox? Because I find it very difficult to find someone who is rebuilding the gearbox. There aren't many people out there who can still do that. And those who can are busy. So I don't have someone next door. So I need to ship it or get it transported. I usually go there and get it and drop it and talk to him. And then he when he has the time, he opens the gearbox and get it done. Then he tells me what is missing, what parts. I order the parts and get them posted to him. And then he starts rebuilding again. It is because in the meantime, when he opens my gearbox, for the time he gets the parts delivered, he starts with another thing. So, and then even the parts arrive, he doesn't change back to my gearbox. He finished the other job. That's why things get delayed. So, and it's better to have that pushed early in the restoration progress. Exactly the same thing goes for the diff. The IRS is a massive thing. It's hard to handle, and I have rebuilt several of those. And the diff I don't touch myself. For the diff, I'm using my friend Alan Slawson. Alan is the diff man, and he's in UK. You're getting the diff back. That might take 6 months, and then you also need to reassemble the whole IRS. And that is another thing. Not every single bearing, part, spacer is available at any time. So you might find some things in back order. So make sure you order all your parts required for your IRS in time. And the worst thing is you find yourself assembling it and just missing a spacer or a bearing or something else. The reassemble of the IRS can start later, but you need to get the diff out to get it rebuilt. Bodywork and so on, and painting, consider about 12 between 18 months. So when your body is done, ready for painting, make sure you have all your chrome bits ready, sorted out, that have every single chrome bit checked. What needs to be re-chromed and what doesn't. And also the chromers, at least here where I am in Germany, the chromers are totally busy, especially the good ones, because you also have good and bad ones. And the good ones are always busy, and they have a lead time. And over here, it takes you about 3 months to get the chrome back. And don't send them when you have the car ready for assembly. And better is to do it all together rather than sending there every bit by bit. The chromers don't like it. So make sure you have the whole chrome bits in one go. The interior parts. Interior parts are never in stock. They have to tailor-made for you. They will ask you what parts you need, and then they start making them for you. They are never stock items. And you can imagine you are not the only one who gets interior done by them. I'm using BAS. I've talked to them at Stoneleigh last year, and they said they have 7 months waiting time to get a car looked at. And then it needs another 6 to 8 weeks to get it done. So, and now we are doing the interior ourselves, but we get the material supplied by them. And even that takes time. Even though you can do the interior yourself, you need to get all the parts in, and they don't drop any other work just because of you. It goes, order comes in, first out. So as sooner you know what your interior needs to look like, as better it is to order in time. Then I have the wiring harness. When your car is really rotten and you're missing some parts, you need to get a new wiring harness. They make them to order. And that takes also time. That, in my case, very often that took about 3 months. But it makes you feel a lot better when you have them in your workshop. And so when you have the day free, make sure you lay out your harness on the ground and you make sure what parts you need. You could also order a complete set, but it is different to the left-hand drive, to the right-hand drive. I get my harnesses done by Autosparks, and they are in UK. And you could also send your own harness there, and they copy it. They make you a new one from the pattern you have sent in. The other thing, again, which needs some lead time, are the carbs. I'm always rebuilding the carbs because I want to have the car smoothly running. I'm not saving on anything. It's just I want to have the car like in new condition. And the carbs, they have the bushers and the carbs. They have the throttle, and the throttle has two bearings on this, two bushes on each side, and that has a weir. And you see, if that is shaking, vibrating, the car doesn't really run properly. So I get my carbs all rebushed. I can reassemble them, but the rebushing requires a special tool, what only Berlin in UK is doing. There might be some others, but I find myself very comfortable with Berlin, and I sent my carb bodies there, and they sent them back. And there's another clip on these carbs, and I really like their job, I have to say. They are really professionals, and reassembling the carbs is a pure pleasure. You could do that on Christmas Eve. And so that also needs to be ordered in advance, and because in the progress of restoring, you always have some gaps to fill in. And that could be one of these projects to fill in between waiting for one thing and the other. You can start on these things, and you know they are ready and done. Last but not least, there are, as we all know, hard to get items. They are either not available, not longer continued, or on back order. And by experience, I know what parts these are, and I try to get them ordered early enough, because that could happen with anything. It is just small spaces you need for the IRS. That could be some ceilings. That could be some washers. That could be anything which are really hard to get, specific for the E-Type. And you need to make sure you get these parts ordered. And you will also find it annoying that you can get 90% of the parts you need from one supplier, but for the other 10%, you need to go to 3 different suppliers. Not expensive items, but you have to pay postage. And that is also annoying. You have to order, you have to start the ordering process. And that is, in the end, it is just, you don't want to order or place an order just for one seal. And so make sure you have enough spare of these consumables. For the IRS, you also want to look into the brakes. I have to tell you, I had a brake failure, a total complete loss of brake. And that was caused by a pitted rear brake cylinder. And so from that, obviously, moisture came in, and the piston came out but didn't return. So the brake pad was always grinding on the rotor, and eventually it became so hot that my brake fluid was boiling. And when I was pressing the brake, I had no reaction, and that was downhill. Since that moment, I thought, I'm crashing a car here worth quite a lot of money. And since then, I always, all my cylinders are all equipped with stainless steel sleeves. I can't do that myself, so I need to use a supplier for that. And that also takes time. And of course, you need to have your rear brake cylinders back. And so that needs to be considered, otherwise it delays the assembly again for that. In between all these gaps for waiting and collecting stuff or not getting further on, I'm using the time for cleaning, derust them, and then I group them for zinc plating, for powder coating, and for painting. And when I have most of the parts together, I will drop them at one or the other, and so I get the whole bulk done, not just one by one. That eases the process. The reassembly is another thing, and I will talk about that when I have the painted body back.